Good morning. Welcome everyone to the July edition of our Hot Topics webinar series on pre-reviewed ADU plans. I'm Wyatt, Casita Coalition board member and executive director of Smart Share Housing Solutions in San Luis Obispo. We're going to keep the presentations today to under an hour and then extend the question period till 12:15 for those interested in staying with us. This webinar series would not be possible without the support of our sponsors and promotional partners. I would like to start by thanking our major sponsors of the webinar series, Meta and Wells Fargo. Additional sponsors include the Stowers team of Cross Country Mortgage, Building Industry Association of the Bay Area, and the law firms of Allen Matkins and Ruben Junius and Rose. And our most recent sponsors and premier members, Sonderpods, Golden Age Financial, Holland and Knight, and Abodu. We would also like to recognize our promotional partners for the webinar series who are aligned with the mission of the Casita Coalition in creating more housing opportunities statewide. A few short offering announcements before I introduce the presenters this morning. Casita Coalition hosts a monthly virtual roundtable for ADU and small housing industry professionals on second Tuesdays at noon. This call is for our business members and those thinking about joining. Email Jared at casitacoalition.org for more information. Our ADU Homeowner Stories video series releases a new video each Monday. You can watch them on our social media and YouTube channels. They're also being distributed by AARP. We have many helpful guidebooks on our website, casitacoalition.org. And ADU professionals, including new releases on SB9, are available. Coming soon, a detailed handbook for legalizing unpermitted ADUs. Finally, if you're in Santa Rosa or near there, join us tomorrow for a homeowner fair and ADU tour in Railroad Square from noon to 5, followed by an industry mixer at 5:30. More information is on the events page at casitacoalition.org. Following our presentation and panel discussion, we'll open it up to questions from attendees. So please use the Q&A feature to ask questions of the panel. Keeping our questions general will help everyone benefit from the responses. So thank you for that. And with that, I'm pleased to get on to today's subject. We'll begin with a presentation from Casita Coalition Senior Policy Associate, Ifeatu Samuel. Then she'll be joined by the City of San Jose's ADU ally, Sarah Shull, and Annie Fryman of Abodu. Their bios are in the chat, so look there for more information on them. Thank you all for joining us this morning. We're glad to have you here. And with that, I'll pass it on to you. Ifeatu, ready to share your screen?
Yes, I am. Some assistance from Tom. Thanks, Tom. And thank you, Ann, and to the panelists and Casita members and partners for their assistance in preparing today's slides and our upcoming guidelines on this topic, with particular thanks to Office of Office and Napa Sonoma ADU Center. Next slide, please. So what exactly does peer-reviewed mean? You'll see several terms used to describe these programs. The most common term used today is pre-approved. You may see permit ready used as well, but here at Casita, we're working alongside others to popularize the more accurate term, pre-reviewed. Now, standard plans are a separate category. They are off the shelf or existing plans that sometimes are added to the marketplace style ADU plan website. Standard plans may or may not be pre-reviewed for code compliance, while pre-reviewed plans have some level of pre-review for standards such as zoning and building code compliance. Next slide. These programs are popping up in cities and counties across the state. So what's driving the trend? What's the problem that these programs hope to address? First, The ADU design and permit process is expensive and time-consuming, and costs can be highly variable. Homeowners are often overwhelmed by the choices out there and don't know where to start. Pre-reviewed plans offer a measure of predictability and cost containment for the design phase, with potentially significant savings in money and time. While these programs are still new and don't have much performance data yet, early indications are that they are valuable to homeowners, jurisdictions, and ADU design professionals in a number of ways. Next slide. They are just still one piece of the larger permit streamlining puzzle. But these programs can help with the number one question most commonly heard from homeowners, which is, where do I start? Having a kind of menu salad bar of ADUs all in one place can make getting started easier, especially when combined with tools like universal checklists, regular ADU hours, designated staff for ADUs, and clear informative websites. Next slide. Whichever type of pre-reviewed plan program a city or county chooses, they will likely help reduce staff hours needed in the first stages of the application process, where the funnel of interested applications is usually the largest. Next slide. ADU design professionals will want to weigh the cost and benefit analysis of the work required to get the plan through the pre-review process versus having standard set design plans of their own that they could offer to their clients. Regional pre-reviewed programs that include multiple cities may make it more attractive for prospective design professionals. Next slide. The two main types of programs are the marketplace style and the city-owned style. Napa Sonoma's new standard plans marketplace is an example of the first, where multiple designers submit plans for homeowners to browse. Next slide. In this example, some of these plans are clearly marked as being pre-reviewed, while others are existing non-review plans that homeowners can also choose. This website combines beautiful ADUs to browse with a strong education component, helping homeowners understand the steps to the process and the importance of working with a professional. Some of the advantages of the marketplace style program include reduced costs for plans and a great variety of designs for many designers. For the jurisdictions, one advantage of this is the liability only stays with the designer. Next slide. The city of Danville chose the other route, city-owned, and commissioned a set of plans in a few different styles and sizes that they think would be a good fit for their community's lot configurations and family needs. Next slide. Advantages of the city-owned plans may include low or no cost to the homeowner, expedited review, and they may be a better fit for smaller cities with a limited architect pool. The city of Danville also included a great chart that helps applicants understand that selecting one of their garden cottage plans doesn't mean the work is done. Many steps remain in the process after this choice is made. We'll have more to say on that later and the topic of making changes to a pre-reviewed plan. But in this type of program, it can be challenging to make even minor changes, as other architects may be hesitant for liability reasons to change another architect's work. Next slide. As we see more prefab ADUs on the market, it'll be important for us to be more precise in our use of the terms ADUs, in the types of ADUs, defining those, as their certifications and building code standards differ, which can impact the permit process and the cost of the unit. Next slide. To quickly run through some of the types of ADUs that might be on the market, there is the traditional or site-built homes, sometimes called stick-built. Next slide. Then under the general category of prefab ADUs, there are HUD certified manufactured homes, which are certified, regulated at the federal level by HUD, but California requires a third-party state-approved inspector. And there are no Title 24 energy code requirements. Next slide. Next is factory built or modular ADUs, which are HDCD certified built to state building code standards. Next slide. And lastly, panelized or flat back ADUs. These panels may be state certified, but local inspections are required. Next slide. With new allowances for ADUs, homeowners have the opportunity to create another living space for their property, to become their own developer, essentially. But most of us are far from prepared for the challenges that may arise. So finding the right ADU professional to help is important. When looking at the selection of pre-reviewed plans, bear in mind that they are likely submitted by several types of vendors, so homeowners should reach out to them to confirm the services they offer if their ADU plans are chosen. These will vary quite a lot. Next slide. So where can pre-reviewed plans save homeowners time and money? Many variables are at work. Depending on the type of ADU chosen, whether homeowners need to make changes or not, the type of ADU professional who helps them, specific conditions on the site, all these things affect how pre-reviewed plans can make the process easier or less expensive. Next slide. It may be human nature to be optimistic, but there are times when that could work against us. Building an ADU is one of those times. We've talked about how pre-reviewed plans can help owners save time and money, but they are certainly not a gold ticket that removes all challenges. This slide shows just a few. Doing what Napa Sonoma ADU Center calls the pre-work is incredibly important. For instance, if you plan to select an only approved slab on grade and your lot is sloped, then all the cost savings might be wiped out in addition to additional construction costs. Understanding your goals for the ADU, your budget, your lot, your current and future plans for how you'll like to use the ADU, that work should come first. And an ADU professional can help you with that. If you're an elected official or marketer creating a new program, your use of language and messaging is incredibly important to help manage expectations, starting with the program name. Next slide. This slide shows some outside agencies within your jurisdiction who will need to sign off on your ADU design. The Planning and Building Department reviews to ensure your ADU meets zoning and building code, but other authorities will have their own requirements, inspections, and fees. In some cities, there are all in-house, those and processes may be simpler, but in others, it's less clear where you'll need to go to get additional help. Next slide. There are many ways to broadcast information to homeowners, but a positive new trend are narrated website or application tours. On the screen is an example from the City of San Jose and their ADU ally, who will meet shortly. Loom is a great platform that makes it easy to record these. Next slide. Like most things, the decision of custom or standard ADU plans is a balancing act, but bear in mind that if your site requires modification of the plans, you won't save as much. Also, the design fee may be only a small percentage of the total cost for your ADU. For those who plan to downsize into their ADU as their new home, a fully custom design may be the best choice. But if this is a rental, the architect has likely designed a small home that will meet the needs of a typical renter, and you can take advantage of the time and costs of savings and of the pre-reviewed plan. And as always, we invite you to join the Casita Coalition and support our work of removing barriers to small housing. Next slide. Thanks, everyone. And back to Anne for our first focus session.
Ifeatu, thanks for the presentation and the very helpful overview. Sarah, the City of San Jose has done remarkable work on streamlining the permit process, and it's been a real innovator and state leader. Your ADU Tuesdays, the ADU Ally position, and also these pre-review plans programs are giving other jurisdictions models to follow. Can you tell us a little about some of the advantages of the pre-reviewed plans for San Jose homeowners who want to build an ADU, and how you worked with Abodu on their prefab homes? Thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thank you, Anne, and the Casita Coalition team for inviting me to chat about the City of San Jose's pre-approved ADU program today. My name is Sarah. I work at the City of San Jose as the ADU Ally in the Development Services Permit Center. San Jose's program is a marketplace style that we kind of talked about before. We do have it in the name pre-approved, but of course there will be a site-specific set of plans that we'll need to review, and that comes in with the ADU Tuesday. All of our expedited review appointments for pre-approved ADUs do happen on Tuesday. So getting back to the topic at hand, it's a marketplace style. Vendors contact us to have not site-specific set of plans. I believe that Anne would probably refer to it as a ghost site. So it's not site-specific set of plans for review as a pre-approved ADU. And the City of San Jose's pre-approved ADU program offers the city's fastest, lowest cost permit process and currently offers 24 pre-approved ADU designs from 14 different pre-approved ADU vendors. Site-specific review for a pre-approved ADU typically takes about an hour during that plan review appointment on Tuesday. And permitting fees typically cost around $7,000. If you have additional plan review time during that meeting, if comments are coming back and a resubmittal is required, that will increase the fees, but we would schedule another Tuesday appointment. So all pre-approved ADUs stick with those Tuesday appointments and receive expedited review. When the site-specific plans and related documents are accurate and complete, they need to provide them to me first. Permits for those projects may be issued the same day of the scheduled plan review meeting. This program is really terrific as an option for homeowners who want what I would call an out-of-the-box option. I want that pre-approved ADU. I'm not going to make any changes to the design, and they receive expedited review and permitting while the vendor, the pre-approved vendor, coordinates really closely with the city and acts as the project manager for that project. And all of this is made possible by the city's process that we have. So here we see our ADU landing page. The link will be shared in the chat, but I can say it verbally. It's sanjoseca.gov/ADUs. And it'll take you to our ADU landing page. You'll be met with interactive buttons. The third one will take you directly to the pre-approved ADU page, where it lists even more information about our process and how we stand to save that time. So once again, it says that the ADU designers and builders get their plans pre-approved and offer that as a time and cost saving to the homeowner. This process requires that site-specific set of plans and review. And to make sure that your property is eligible for a pre-approved ADU, homeowners or anybody interested can use the ADU Universal Checklist. It prompts you to do some pre-work, what I would call property research, of course. Look into that property, make sure that it does qualify as a pre-approved ADU, specifically for the city of San Jose or whatever jurisdiction your property is in. For the city of San Jose in particular, it must be a detached ADU project, zoned residential, and have an existing single family home or a duplex. And the lot must not be located in a geohazard, landslide, flood zone, or the wildland urban interface zone, what the fire department calls the WUI. So of course, you'll need to make sure that the property does qualify. And this is a major component of how we save time and money in plan review, that any property that is in any of these zones will automatically require more review, because we need to look into those zones and make sure that it's being proposed safely to the code that meets all of those requirements.
Sarah, excuse me for this, but help us understand what percentage of lots that excludes. Those exclusion areas exclude. Can you give a general guess on that citywide?
I'm not sure how many properties are affected by that. I couldn't really say the percentage of San Jose, if it's 50% or what,
Okay.
of properties that land in those zones. So unfortunately, I don't have that piece of data.
Okay. I just thought I'd check because that could be relevant, because as all of us are noticing, that could be a significant percentage of our jurisdiction's residential lots fitting within those exclusion areas.
Yes,
So,
sometimes it could. And thank you for pointing that out. I'll dig a little bit deeper with our team to see if we can find out that information. But yes, that is kind of a limiting component to it. But if you are in any of those lots that, you know, are not affected by those site-specific characteristics, and it's not a multifamily lot, of course, then reviewing the ADU universal checklist. And if you have some challenges with that, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is on the ADU universal checklist and on the left-hand sidebar of any of these city ADU pages that you would visit. So of course you stand to save that time and money. Permitting for this is around $7,000. If you have more, it'll go up. So a homeowner interested, you would visit this page, check out the ADU universal checklist. If you had questions, you could ask me or a vendor that you had contacted. But the overall intent is that a homeowner will look at these, the pre-approved ADUs that are offered, because the vendor went ahead and had this not site-specific set of plans approved. Go ahead and take a look at their webpage. And of course, we're referencing Abodu because Annie's going to come in and chat a bit. So if you like what they have to offer, the homeowner would work with the vendor to go through you know, the ADU universal checklist, absolutely establish eligibility and move forward with a site-specific set of plans. At that point, the homeowner is kind of hands-off at that point. The vendor takes on everything after that. And that's when the vendor would refer to this section of the webpage at the bottom. How do you use your sites, your pre-approved plans, and submit that site-specific submittal? So essentially the vendor would create the site-specific set of plans for you and the submittal package. They would send it to me. I make sure that everything is you know, all in line to schedule that Tuesday virtual appointment. And during that appointment, as long as everything is you know, looking good and approved, we do stand the chance to issue that permit the same day. So that kind of
okay. I can't help but ask here, when you say stand a chance, so what percentage roughly of applications can you get through in that same day?
I would say at least 80% of our site-specific submittal get through the same day. The things that would prevent it is if an application wasn't, you know, completely perfect, maybe that might bump it to getting that permit issued the same week, or if it wasn't approved during that review and we needed a resubmittal, we would schedule a Tuesday appointment, the following Tuesday appointment, most likely, to have that review. And then on that day.
Okay, well, that's an impressive high number, 80%. So thanks for that. Sarah, maybe a little more quickly on your slides, and then I want to get Annie Fry from Abodu in here with us. So maybe we can get her up on the screen while you finish up, and
Sure.
So we can introduce her shortly.
Yeah, that really wraps up my information. Really, it's just that the homeowners visit the page, check out what you have, connect with a vendor, and they'll take care of the rest. If you have questions along the way, feel free to go ahead and let me know. And any ADU question with the City of San Jose, I act as a central point of contact for those questions. Send me an email, give me a call, let me know what you need, and I can help you move forward.
Sarah, thanks for that. So we've got Annie Fryman here from Abodu, who we know you work with quite a bit. So as we get Annie on to share her screen and a few slides she has, Annie, maybe you can just tell us by way of introduction how many projects Abodu may have worked with just at San Jose, or some numbers for quick reference.
It's a great question. I don't have the data in front of me, but my best guess is probably permitted like between 25 and 50 in San Jose through the duration of that program. I know that San Jose and that part of the Bay Area is our biggest market. And San Jose, it's interesting because when we're selling units and talking with customers, the San Jose program is a really extraordinary help and sell and pushing homeowners who are considering building an ADU over the line because of the predictability and ease and efficiency of that program that San Jose in the city side has built.
Well, thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your interaction and experience with that permitting process then, moving from planning through building and the rest of the process. I think that'll be helpful to people listening.
Of course, yeah. And I'm excited to be on today in part because I know that a lot of folks attending this webinar are doing so from either the homeowner side of sort of the help that Casita offers. And we're here to kind of offer the opposite perspective, which is working with Casita and with cities from the vendor perspective or from the folks that are building the ADUs. I know that Sarah gave a lot of background on, as a homeowner, how would you really utilize their program and, you know, for all that it's worth. And I can say with 100% confidence, San Jose is the gold standard in California for a city department promoting ADU permitting. When we talk to cities up and down the state, we use San Jose as the gold star example, saying if you can do half of what they do, you'll be in incredible shape. So really just wanted to thank Sarah and your team for all the work that you've put into making that a really high functioning program. Also, so basically the experience that we have, and I wanted to talk today both about San Jose as the ideal situation, but also all of the incremental or intermediate steps that other cities can take if they're running short of being exactly like San Jose. Our experience with San Jose is that when we have a contract signed with a homeowner to build an ADU, we get scheduled for a meeting on ADU Tuesdays. So basically, however many business days it takes to get to Tuesday is when our permit is considered. We are able to schedule a Zoom meeting with all of the San Jose departments that are relevant in permitting and have a 1-hour Zoom call for everyone all at once to look over anything that is site specific about that permit. Abodu builds factory built housing in San Jose has already pre-approved our standard foundation plan that applies to almost all properties in San Jose. And so what's cool about that is that we get everyone, you know, planning, building, public works, all the folks that are relevant for a permit on that Zoom call. Within 1 hour, everyone is collaboratively and cross-departmentally figured out anything site specific. We're able to answer those questions in the moment. And then we can usually get our permit by the end of that day. Like Sarah mentioned, there are some edge cases, but I would say in our case, it's probably less than 10% of the time that there's some situation, maybe a weird site condition, geohazard zone, flood zone, et cetera, that might merit a little more attention. Maximum, we'll wait a week, right? So within that next Tuesday, we'll have our permit, which is really incredible. I mean, most cities in California, you're lucky if you get a permit within 3 to 6 months. San Jose's is the standard expectation is by the end of the day, and worst case scenario is about a week, which is just really, really incredible, both for homeowners and vendors here who have ever had to deal with the city permitting process. Really, really quickly, also, I wanted to share a couple slides to move through quite quickly. I know that we're running a little late on time, but a couple of things about this topic of pre-approved plans. This is a really PDF that Abodu shares with cities that we are considering working with with the eye towards speeding up permitting in those cities. You can see that this is kind of, you know, option one, which is the really like simplest version, is the lowest ask for a city is, could you approve our standard foundation plan? Could your structural engineering department approve a ghost permit or a standard foundation? And so as long as we're using that standard foundation with our factory built housing, it does not need to go through structural or building because this pre-reviewed foundation is already on file. That means that they just do a really quick reference to make sure that that foundation matches the thing that they have on file every time we submit a permit, and then they shuffle it through that process. Option two that we sometimes ask cities for is, could you have a dedicated reviewer within your city who's responsible for all ADU projects or all Abodu projects or all factory built housing projects? Someone who sort of specializes in that type of permit review. This is something that San Jose does, a lot of different cities do, that we see really, really speeds up permitting without sacrificing any necessary oversight on behalf of the city, because there's a lot that comes with that familiarity, ability to communicate, and seeing those repeat projects. Option three here is what they have in San Jose, which is doing the fully over-the-counter review, preferably remote and over Zoom. There are a handful of cities that are looking at adopting this more thoroughly. Oftentimes one part of a permit set will be over the counter, but not the entirety of it. And this is something that, like I said before, is really the gold standard for getting those ADU projects approved very quickly, developing sort of good government and operationally efficient protocols within the city that doesn't sacrifice any necessary oversight from an engineering or building safety point of view. For this option 3, I wanted to kind of just show a really quick visual and then hand it off to the next speaker about what problem this solves kind of diagrammatically. So you can see that here, this is the standard review process in a city that does not have special permitting program like San Jose or any of the other kind of good actors throughout the state. You have, like any other residential project, very, very left of the screen, we would submit an ADU application. It would get routed to planning. When planning is finished, it would get routed to building. When building finishes, it would get routed to public works, et cetera. Anytime one of these departments has comments, it starts over that clock, it gets put in their pile in their queue. And you can see in the bottom right here, sometimes just because of the queue and the workload of a lot of these cities and the way that they structure their reviews to not happen concurrently, this can add up to a total permitting time of 3 to 6 months. Fast forward.
And Andy,
Sorry,
with
what?
that, excuse me for butting in, Annie. I want to break in here because our next speaker, Senator Skinner, is here with us on the call. So thanks for these slides, and we'll have more chance in the panel after a few more words from Senator Skinner. So thanks for that, and more soon. Thank you very much.
Great. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you both to Annie and to Sarah. And I'm very pleased right now to introduce today's special guest, Speaker Senator Nancy Skinner, a social justice advocate, energy and climate change trailblazer, and accomplished legislator. Senator Nancy Skinner was first elected to the state Senate in 2016. Senator Skinner currently serves as chair of the Senate's Budget and Fiscal Review Committee and vice chair of the Legislative Women's Caucus. Welcome, Senator Skinner. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Anne. And Annie, thank you for talking about the process for ADU permits, that even though we've done some great legislation to really help California homeowners make it much easier to do ADUs and to basically keep local governments, get them out of the way from trying to stop them, because so many were, the process can still be tricky. I'm going to talk about ADU some because it's the largest number of units of housing that are being built now in California. But I want to talk first, I want to open with what you all know, which is that we don't have enough housing in California. We have a severe shortage. And in what the Public Policy Institute of California calculated is that based on the 2020 census, that California added 3.2 times more people than housing units over the last 10 years. So in other words, in that period of time between the 2010 and the 2020, we added, well more people than we added housing units. So what is that? The projection is that we're short, and people calculate this different, but we're probably short about 3.5 million units. And the thing that really feels to me very frustrating about that, kind of feels like we're dog paddling, is when we were confronted with knowing we were short by about 2 million, 2.5 million, and we're talking now around the time when Newsom first got elected, there were a number of us in the legislature who were really dedicated to just promoting housing, to streamlining housing. You saw so many bills by Senator Wiener, bills by myself, bills by Assemblymember Ting, bills by Senator Wykowski, bills by Tim Grayson, whether it was my bills around Housing Crisis Act or housing accountability, or Scott's for bypassing certain processes if you built in certain locations and used prevailing wage and such. All those things really, we know, really made the landscape for building housing much easier in California, and we started to really see an increase in housing. But with with things like the pandemic first affecting, the ability for, cities weren't processing permits. Construction firms didn't have the employees. There weren't a lot of counties stopped construction, not understanding that, outside work probably wasn't going to be creating the pandemic, contributing to the pandemic the same level. So there was a whole lot of kind of, slowdown just due to the pandemic. And now, what with continued labor shortages and the supply chain issues, costs rising and interest rates going up, all of a sudden we're watching a big slowdown again, which is very concerning considering our shortage and our crisis, and considering how much that affects the economic vitality of the state. We saw that, those companies and people that left, they left a lot due to the cost of housing. Now, we did not have the exodus that some trade publications tried to, exacerbate. They tried to act like we had a much bigger exodus than we did. But even so, we did have some exodus, and that exodus was basically due to cost of housing. And now, if we're not able to add the amount of housing we need, we could still face that. And of course, when we look at people's economic well-being in California, that struggle with cost of housing is what really affects their quality of life. So what we see is that ADUs are being built, and that ADUs can help us solve this housing shortfall. And so good news. Want to be the good news. Now, given that ADUs are being built, and given that ADUs help people who might otherwise be struggling economically, say help a household retain their house, or help a household add some additional income if they use it as a rental unit, or help a household support a family member, whether it's a senior or a kid that's come back from college that can't afford to purchase housing on their own, whatever means, it's an economic benefit in addition to a housing benefit, these ADUs. So what we need, and this is why I liked Annie talking about it, is we need to look at what else do we have to do to make sure that permits are being processed quickly, that we don't have barriers, and what can we do about helping with financing. And as budget chair, I'm the Senate budget chair, we put in money last year, and we've continued it this year, for a financing program to help give loans to low interest loans to those households that can't qualify for some of the traditional monies in order to get the capital to build their ADU. And the program didn't really get out the door very quickly yet, and we need to monitor it and make sure that it's being done right. So that's obviously something that is very much on my mind, and trying to make sure that whatever ways the program develops itself is useful and gets the money into the hands of the people who really need it. But the other things we did in the budget that I thought were, very helpful are, we put money for Cal Home, which is a program that supports first-time home buyers, plus a new program that the Treasurer's Office is going to start to help first-time home buyers, as well as $300 million in the Housing Accelerator program to help those affordable housing projects that just have a gap in their financing, that could break ground if they just meet, this different gap. And we don't want them to lose either their tax credits or the different financing that they've cobbled together. So the Housing Accelerator is for that purpose, and it is really good. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm sure there's questions people may have.
Senator Skinner, thank you so much for joining us today. We didn't schedule questions right now.
Okay.
So if you can stay on with us, I'm just sure there will be questions after our next round of panelists. Okay. So
Great.
Please feel free to stay on with us if you can. And we understand if you have to get off. And with that, we want to bring on the rest of our panelists. So we've got Steve Vallejos of prefabADU. We've got Elizabeth Timme of LA Moss. Renee Schomp of Napa Sonoma ADU Center is here, and David Driskell of Baird and Driskell Community Planning. Again, we're going to save some time and we're going to put their extensive, impressive bios up in the chat so we can get them on here and learn what they have to say. So with that, we're going to start with Renee Schomp and David Driskell. Renee and David, you just completed work on a standard plans program that covers, if I understand right, 16 jurisdictions where homeowners can browse plans and that are pre-reviewed for their multiple cities and maybe some county jurisdictions as well, along with other plans that aren't. Renee, if you're ready to share your screen, I know you're going to give us a first look. Welcome.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you to all of you, Senator Skinner, for your really moving and helpful remarks as we move forward in building more housing for our community. This is going to be a lightning round through our marketplace style standard and pre-reviewed plans program. Shortly, I'm going to hand it over to David of Baird and Driskell, the consultants that worked with our nonprofit, the Napa Sonoma ADU Center, to build this program. But first, a whirlwind tour. So as was mentioned previously, our focus here with this program, which includes standard and pre-reviewed plans, is really to move homeowners from marinating on the idea of an ADU for years to taking concrete action steps more rapidly. So our nonprofit really encourages folks to do that pre-work that Sarah discussed earlier about making sure that they can finance their ADU, they understand a realistic budget estimate, and their parcel is eligible to build an ADU. So our nonprofit helps with that. From there, they move on to looking through a gallery of 50 very diverse ADU plan sets. So of these 50 really diverse ADU plans, and you can see here, we have a 1,200 square foot to a 265 square foot plan. They can select two different ways to get through the gallery. Number one, they can say, I only want to look at plans that are pre-reviewed with my local jurisdiction. We have our 16 cities and counties here in Napa Sonoma listed here. They can click their jurisdiction and see half of the 50 plans here are pre-reviewed for most of the jurisdictions. Of those, half are prefab and half are traditional site built. They can also use these extensive filters to go through and look at all of the 50 different plan sets. So you can choose by the type of build, the square footage. My favorite is the features like accessible, universal design, fire resistive. They can add favorites so that they can select and save favorites as they go through the extensive, really diverse plans here. And then when they click on a plan, they're going to see a lot more details about the company that built it and the plan set itself. They can go through a whole gallery of interior and exterior shots, floor plans, and then learn a lot of details about the license fee to license that plan from the designer, estimated construction cost, and additional professional fees to take that plan set through the permitting process. Another one on here is from prefabADU. Steve Vallejos is with us today. This is a very small micro ADU. We're excited about this because it really can help move the needle for homeowners who otherwise might not be able to build an ADU. As you can see there, estimated construction cost, this is a panel kit that folks can get through prefabADU. They can connect directly with the designer here, or they can email the listing to themselves or a friend or family member. And again, we always encourage them to do that pre-work with our nonprofit to make sure they're eligible. I'm going to hand it over to David now, but I just want to emphasize we just launched the beta of this program last month. So we're very much in a pilot stage, and our nonprofit is really committed to being fully transparent about our lessons learned, our challenges along the way, and how this is going, because I really see this as an excellent opportunity to scale this kind of gallery or this gallery itself statewide to help us build more housing that is much needed in the state. With that, I'll hand it over to you, David.
Yeah, I'll just share really briefly, we've been on a learning journey with Renee and with the 16 jurisdictions. We learned a lot from looking at the San Jose program, LA's program, Seattle's program that helped inform the design of this, and just some of the feedback from our jurisdiction partners and our architect partners. So one is, a lot of traditional pre-approved plan programs, one, people, some of the building officials get a little bristly around the language of pre-approved. They're like, everybody has to come in and get a permit. They're not approved yet. So we've gone to the language of pre-reviewed plans. And within that, the standard plans being something that, so for an architect to be part of this program, they commit to what we're calling a license fee. We recommend a license fee of around $1,000 max, but they can set it at whatever they want. And we just want transparency for the homeowner to know that they can buy that plan for X cost. And if you look on the gallery, you'll see that most of them hover around 1,000, but there's some of them are down to 500. Obviously, prefab plans are free because you're actually buying the unit, not the plan. But an architect can actually have an ADU they do that they think the design's awesome, and then they can sell that, basically make it available to multiple homeowners around Napa, Sonoma, or potentially even around the state. So the idea is it's saves just right up front. Even if you just do a standard plan that's not pre-reviewed, you're saving thousands of dollars and months of time versus doing a custom plan. We want to maximize the choice for the homeowner. So that led to this design. And we want to keep the designer in the loop. So a lot of the jurisdiction feedback was, we really don't want to have free plans that we just hand over to a homeowner and they come in without an architect or a contractor who can help them get through the permitting process. It's complex and most homeowners don't know how the process works. So by keeping the designer in the loop, they continue to own the plan. They're responsible for the liability related to the plan. They're responsible for updating when there's code updates. And potentially they take it all the way through the permit process, or they sell it and the homeowner can work with a different architect to take it through the permit process, excuse me. Our goal here, again, it's been a learning journey. We just launched in Napa, Sonoma. We're launching a similar program in Bakersfield, California in the next month or so. And we're just starting a process with several different councils of government in Southern California, which will have 80 jurisdictions participating in this. So we've been doing a lot of thinking about how to make this scalable. But the idea is this could easily have hundreds of plans available. So you could filter and find something that works for you. Jurisdictions can invite specific architects to go through a pre-review process or even download the plans and review it and check the box that they're now pre-reviewed for their jurisdiction. This takes care of a lot of the challenges. So some of the stuff that Sarah was talking about that San Jose has done in terms of the actual development review process streamlining. This does not do that, but it makes it possible for even jurisdictions that are small, like a Calistoga or something, which they don't have a large staff, and they actually rely on third-party reviewers to do most of their work. So we're trying to do something that is a platform that a variety of jurisdictions could take advantage of to support.
David, thank you for that. David and Renee, this is amazing. Coming from a county with just 7 cities and a county 8 jurisdictions, this is
16,
amazing
yeah.
that you've pieced together 16, and this notion of 80 is incredible. But I want to open it up then and get our other panelists in here and hear a little bit from Elizabeth and from Steve about what they consider kind of the most important components of an effective pre-reviewed plans program and how they come into this. Maybe Elizabeth, we'll start with you because I know you come into this also with this kind of designer-owned plans project, which is also aligned then with what Renee and David have described in Napa and what San Jose uses, but is a little different than the jurisdiction-owned process. So you want to weigh in a little bit on your experience at LA Moss?
With Office of Office. Yes, thank you. We have been doing a lot of work around the pre-approved process, and in many ways, it's been something that we've used to bolster an affordable housing initiative. We've found that there's immense potential when we can talk about ADUs supporting the housing unstable and seniors and homeowners who are struggling to make ends meet, which the senator so eloquently noted. And when we do this and when we talk about this, it's essential that agencies, local government, planning and building and safety are aligned on the population that's being supported through these various ADU efforts or tools. And the pre-approved plan process is one of those tools. So for us, we really defined from the outset which population will benefit from us using the streamlined permitting process or the pre-approved plan. And it was also in tandem with incentives for renting the ADU affordably. And so in many ways, we think a lot about impact as something that's stacked and defined. And so what we're looking at is things like Section 8, for instance, that was already a program that had low housing stock available, and we were pairing that with the ADU plan. And so I think that, you know, you've mentioned this idea around proprietary versus open source and all those things. As a nonprofit, our plans are widely available, and that's not something that we are owning. We are designers of the program, but we're also designers of these units, but also we're program managers and walking homeowners through the program and through the process of becoming someone who rents their unit affordably. Many of these homeowners, even with the pre-approved plan process, have their capacity developed to become developers. And that sucks. And that's not something homeowners really want to sign up for. And then at the end of that, to ask them to rent something affordably also sucks when there's a lot of incurred costs that they didn't necessarily anticipate. And so for us, the idea that affordable housing doesn't have to look affordable is an essential aim in tandem with the idea that something can be beautiful, something can represent identity, something can represent context and character and stabilize communities. So I'm trying to give you 10 years of work in 2 seconds.
I appreciate that challenge there, Elizabeth, and apologies for the wrong introduction there. So everyone has the correct information in the chat. I hope people will ask you more in the Q&As, and you'll stay with us about that population service segmenting, because that's something that I know is important to me and a lot of us, is how we can really serve the very low income populations and whether we're being effective in that and how we up our game to get there. So let's hope we can come back to that in the questions. But right now I want to get Steve Vallejos in here because he hasn't had a word yet. And Steve, why don't maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about your teeny tiny prefab that's in this list and where you're at with that, because that kind of gets to our question about affordability and who we're able to serve. So maybe you can share some general information there.
Yeah, I'd be happy. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, I'd be happy to share some insight about that. So, it really aligns with this question you had about an effective pre-reviewed plan program. Tops on my list is reaching all consumer purchasing power levels. This is the crux of our industry. You got to reach back. I've been here probably the longest. So, this reaches back to 2003 when this originally started, when the ADU movement originally started. It started as an insane idea there. I spent better part of 10 years being an only person in this space, not competing with anybody other than municipalities who didn't really want to do this. And later, enlisting the support of senators like Senator Skinner and Wykowski and others to help break down the barriers through legislation. But to the point about affordability, I think that's a very, very important component, and for most jurisdictions, their decision to get into pre-approved plans should center on that component. Granted, there's a lot of when you talk about counties, you got a wide range of income levels within a county, but the challenged areas are the ones that we as a service provider are concerned about, cities are concerned about, and the consumer is concerned about. So to the point about our micro unit, 4 or 5 years ago, when the efficiency unit size went from 240, 220 down to 150 square feet, it became a goal for us to figure out, is that physically possible to design and build something that actually meets all the building code, and actually could be technically a housing unit. So we took on the challenge. We created the micro unit, and we've seen some decent success with it. But I think I think we're expecting a lot more now as we work with municipalities like Napa and Sonoma to get it as a part of the pre-review plan set, and then just increase the education. Part of the problem with something that small is that it's that small. And when you talk about 150 square feet and you tell somebody, well, it's a living unit at 12 by 12 and a half, you all of a sudden the instant reaction to that is, oh my God, I don't think I could live in that. So the only answer is to build it and let people see it. And so to have a demo unit, and have, have 10 or more people standing in it. We've taken it to San Jose a few times and other places, but yeah, you're standing in there with a group of people, and they're like, "What? This is doable. This is comfortable." Also, having people like city officials challenge us to say, "No, this is not real. It's not. You're lying to me, Steve. This is not 150 square feet." And so we.
Right. So Steve, I want to interject here because I also want to get quickly Annie and Sarah in here, and maybe just quickly everybody. We've had the same experience that Seeing is Believing, and put on an expo to show people small housing for the same reason, and have just purchased a small demo house that will be about 220 square feet. So same experience, but Steve, what's your small house? What do you expect it's going to come in at? And I want to take a survey of everybody. How low can you go right now with your Get Lucky site and your smallest units? And so just quickly, everybody, if we can go around, and then we'll get into questions from the group. How low can you go with it, Steve?
So if you're having me start, I'm going to put the shock value into everybody. It is full build from a contractor build. It's an $80,000 product. If you go DIY with it, because our products are DIYable, it's less than 40. It's about $45,000. So if you tap into Senator Skinner's grant program through Cal HFA, and you were able to pull in the $40,000 grant as a part of this, we're actually talking about a housing unit that can be built for about $5,000.
Woo! Okay, so everybody, I hope you're going to ask more questions to Steve after we get a few more quick responses. Annie, how low can you go?
In terms of pricing, so a little bit of a different, I guess, framework for ours. Because our units are all factory built and Abodu handles 100% of the permitting, installation, any custom site work, etc., all in out of pocket for the homeowner, I think that our base Abodu studio unit, including everything, comes in at about $230,000. And that's, again, everything out of pocket, start to finish, with no work on behalf of the homeowner.
Understand that kind of lays out, that's sort of a nice continuum where Steve has laid out the kind of Get Lucky DIY case, and you're laying out kind of the base concierge, kind of handed over to Abodu to handle the grief.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's actually an excellent range.
Yeah, and we choreograph all of the different contractors and whatnot, depending on the site and the specific permit fees of that jurisdiction. You can add between $0 and $25,000 to it if you need a new retaining wall, if you have particular.
Understood. There'd be plenty of variability. Elizabeth, what did you see?
Excuse me, and we've got to break in and do the wrap up, and then we can continue this after that. But for people who have to sign off at 12.
Oh, yep, we're there. Okay, everybody. We hope you'll stay on with us. We've got 15 minutes or so to go, if people can stay on for Q&A. And so with that, just to honor people who just had an hour of time, we want to extend a special thanks right now to all of our presenters and Senator Skinner, who's still with us here. And to all of you for joining us in the event today. We look forward to learning from you in the questions now. If you missed anything today, or you'd like to view the webinar or past webinars, they're all available on Casita Coalition's YouTube channel. We invite other small housing professionals, community-based organizations, and homeowners to add your voice and join the conversation by becoming a member or donating to the Casita Coalition. Again, thank you, panelists and special guests. And our next month's Hot Topics webinar is scheduled for August 26th at 11 a.m. We'll share information about climate change and small housing then. So we hope many of you can join us then. If you'd like to stay informed about upcoming in-person events, webinars, and other news, please sign up for our mailing list or consider joining the Casita Coalition. We are a membership organization, and if you like what we're doing, please support our efforts. Join the Casita Coalition and help us work to remove barriers to ADUs and other small form of housing production throughout California. Please like and follow us on social media. And with that, thank you, and we'll see you next month for people that need to tune out here. But otherwise, we hope you'll all stay with us on questions, and we'll carry on. So maybe we can just get a quick more bit on cost, kind of best guess cost from those who haven't weighed in, just another minute. Then we'll take questions from the audience and carry on. Renee, please.
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, Steve's micro ADU is in our gallery. It's one of the ones that I went through in detail, so you guys can check out details there. Abodu's units are also in our gallery. Another piece to think about is that if a homeowner is building an ADU as a means of wealth building, so for example, we've seen in the city of Oakland, the Keys to Equity program, building a larger ADU, if they can get financing to do that, is going to bring in more wealth through passive income stream. So thinking about this question of money and finance and budget from a nuanced perspective is really important depending on the homeowner that you're talking to. So going back to Elizabeth's point about Section 8 and different financing and targeting, supporting lower income tenants as well with ADUs, I just wanted to make sure folks are aware that I think that these programs need to be paired with, you know, education and information about that Cal HFA $40,000 pre-development ADU grant, about our nonprofit's ADU construction loan product with Redwood Credit Union, which opens up financing of up to $300,000 for homeowners with low income and low equity in their existing home. Looking at this from a nuanced perspective of having a diversity of options. That micro ADU that Steve has, that's incredible, that is really low cost, and then options like Abodu or Office of Office that can help low income homeowners build wealth.
Thanks, Renee. That's helpful to look at kind of a variety of types of equity or benefit from this. And so David has a word, and then I want to hear from Elizabeth, because I know you've looked at this from a different, a certain equity lens. So maybe you can share after David.
I'll just make a plug for folks who are listening who work with jurisdictions. Time is money. So being able to turn around approvals of ADUs has a significant financial benefit to making them more affordable. The longer that the process takes, the more expensive it becomes, the more uncertain. So really want to, in terms of wanting to support more affordable outcomes, that's a big one. And you can make it an income qualified, you jump to the front of the queue. There's different ways to structure it, but having fast turnarounds, that brings down the cost.
Thanks. Elizabeth, do you want to chime in there?
For us, we're really construction typology agnostic. So anything that works is the best. And we've partnered with prefab groups, and we've worked with nonprofit contractors that use stick-built construction. And there's no one size fits all construction type that works for every site and in every scenario. And for us, it's really more about the occupants and the tenant. And so in some cases, a homeowner will be living in an HPOZ, which is a historic preservation overlay zone, and a hillside, and you know, a prefab unit doesn't work for them. And so in those cases, well, what we've found in those cases, we use stick build. There are other cases where it's a different site and prefab makes absolutely the most sense. And it's just a really incredible time to be able to partner with different groups that are so passionate about different construction methods and typologies, to be able to really drive impact and outcomes around equity so that communities of color are not being left behind in this development potential.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Anybody else want to weigh in on cost and kind of general equity issues there? Sarah, anything from your perspective at the city or ways you're helping lower income populations get the extra hand holding maybe they need to be able to follow through on this complex process?
As a local jurisdiction, we can't really speak on behalf of financing or anything like that. And internally, we're not able to waive our fees due to cost recovery reasons. But on our landing page that was initially shared in the chat, there is a local within San Jose, possibly the Bay Area. They're called Housing Trust Silicon Valley. They have a financing option for homeowners proposing ADUs, and still on that same page, if you scroll down a bit further, we do have a link to the HCD webpage that has that financing option that I'm pretty sure everybody has been chatting about. But internally with local jurisdictions, David said it best, that, you know, that pre-work, finding out what's going on with that lot, and also with local jurisdictions, and certainly San Jose, if you have a property in San Jose, check out those web pages. If you or a professional that you're hiring have questions, send them directly to me or your local jurisdiction. Fact find before you put money down. That's what I would suggest first and foremost, that you need to figure out what's going on there, what challenges you may face, and, you know, determine whether you want to move forward or not.
Looks like Annie has her hand up.
Yeah, a couple points to mention. I think on some of the equity considerations that we struggle with, I think at Abodu, is that the financing options that are currently widespread and available are a home equity line of credit or a cash out refi. And so for homeowners that don't have as much equity in their property, it is really challenging to secure financing based on the current options available. One thing that I've been very optimistic about that's come out in the last, I want to say month, is there was guidance all the way down from the federal government and the Biden administration and the big housing supply plan that was announced last month to actually allow homeowners and appraisers to consider future rental income from an ADU in the acquisition of financing to build the ADU. Right now, you sort of have this chicken and egg problem where even if you're trying to use that ADU as an income generating property, you can't consider that future income as income when you're getting approved for a loan. So that's a change that we're tracking really closely and are excited to see come out. I think the HCD program is also particularly valuable, and the local work that's happening through Redwood Credit Union and other routes. But I think financing is one of the biggest challenges that we see, because even over the course of the lifetime of the ADU, if the homeowner is more than able to pay for that through monthlies, it can be challenging to get those upfront pieces to fit together, and that severely disadvantages lower income, middle income homeowners, as well as newer homeowners that don't yet have that equity in their property to be able to cash out.
Yeah, Annie,
ahead.
I think you summarized the situation that we've seen on the ground there exactly, that there's so much upfront kind of pre-development cost and risk involved that lower income homeowners aren't positioned to take that risk. So they're still often locked out of this process. Senator Skinner, I think we've kind of laid it out, or you have, that we need more housing all around. So any ADU is a win, but some of these ADUs that cost more or at the higher end, or that lower income homeowners in need of help can't build, may lock them out. Can you help us or offer any kind of policy, equity, higher level guidance there as we try to sort through this? Do you have any answers for us?
Some of this is the, private sector financing programs and things like these rules around mortgages and all, they're in the hands of the Fed. So while we have communicated to the Biden administration. We've also communicated to our delegation that we think such rules need to be changed. So we've communicated to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We, as Annie pointed out, the rules haven't been changed yet. So we're limited in what we can do in this state. Obviously, our trying to put money towards helping those low-income folks finance. And this is where we need feedback from all of you that are interacting with the homeowner around those programs. Look, state agencies can, whether consciously or inadvertently, put in rules or formats or whatever that make it much harder or easier. And so, getting feedback from the practitioners as to what we need to direct them to change is always helpful. But then the other thing is whether there's, we have City of San Jose here. We can't tell cities you can't charge a fee for the permitting, but we certainly can put rules around, as we already have, basically either requiring certain permitting or even putting timelines, that kind of thing. So if there's other actions that are needed by the state, and we know time is money, then hey, people like myself are all ears. So we welcome that kind of suggestion.
And Steve,
Okay.
your hand's up.
Steve, I'm not, yeah. Let's get you off.
Yeah, okay. So it's great to follow up after Senator Skinner here and Annie as well, because what you guys highlight is I think, we're talking amongst each other as industry professionals here. So we have to understand that this is an ecosystem. And when everybody operates in their own silo without understanding that you're part of an ecosystem, then we as an industry don't evolve. So it's important to have groups like this get together and kind of commiserate on the problems that we face, so that we can look at how do we link each other up to solutions. So in that regard, this whole idea of pre-review, pre-approved plans is a piece of the puzzle, because you're linking a city with the aspirations of getting scaling to the industry full of professionals, as well as we're getting hints of what is working to create a much larger ripple effect and get that information back to the senators about what can you guys do to help us with the next phase. It isn't constant. I mean, I was on a one-on-one call with Senator Skinner about what legislation do we add, and my response to her was like, none. Let's leave it alone for a minute. Let's let them have some time to acclimate. And that's, these are the things that some of the cities need and the industry needs as a whole. So
Steve, I'm going to follow up on that here, because Senator Skinner is with us and has her audio on. And so by way of that follow-up, a couple of things that I've seen, and I'm hoping you can all add by way of follow-up conversations between us, kind of low level, high level, is the question of that Cal HFA, that funding pot. I don't know that that's connected to the people who need it yet, or any of those loans have been able to be accessed yet. So that's something I'm hoping we could have some follow-up conversation on. That was really well intended and a lot of money toward that program, but to make sure we can actually get it out to people, I'm not sure that's been connected yet. So I'm hoping we can have a follow-up conversation on that soon. And then another item, someone brought up in the chat that we didn't get to, it's not strictly relevant to this right now, but small homes on wheels and the options for tiny housing that's movable. And so that's another option where I see we have a lot of equity opportunity and lower cost opportunities, and some jurisdictions have jumped on that, but it's still tricky with statewide regulations. So what else, Renee?
I just wanted to chime in on that because I think it's really great that we're opening up the conversation beyond ADUs to other forms of small housing. And one of the things that I'm excited about with our standard plans program is that some of the jurisdictions up here have named being interested in expanding that gallery to include other forms of small housing to expedite and scale multiple diverse types of small housing. And I think it's exciting to consider how we can all team up to scale programs like this one to meet a diverse range of small housing needs. And I would recommend, like, if David, you have any other thoughts on that, since I'm just Napa Sonoma nonprofit and I can't do scaling beyond our region and you can.
Well, Elizabeth has had her hand up for a minute, so let's let her finish up. And then we think we have one more comment and we're going to have to wrap up. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Something I was going to say, which is a little radical, is that we have historically subsidized low density housing to workforce housing in the form of suburbs.
It's not radical. It is accepted now to understand that.
Yes,
How
but
policies have done that. But go ahead.
Thanks
yes,
for that. Yes.
but what is radical is the idea that if we really want to engage low income homeowners, we should take off the table the entire cost of construction, and we should treat them as developers who are using their land in a risky value proposition to support community members having stability. And we definitely did that for developers in the past. We continue to offer those incentives to developers now and in the future. And so there are many ways to support communities of color, and there are many ways to support low to moderate income homeowners with things that don't look like loan products. We did partner with Self-Help Credit Union to create a loan product, and we found that we couldn't really engage low to moderate income homeowners because their debt to income ratio was too high. And the reality of the fact is that there are so many homeowners that are within this population group and within this income bracket that can't take on any risk. So it's a little radical. It is a little radical, but it's a reality that we found after operating the program for 2 years.
Thanks for that. We're just about out of time. Maybe we can give Senator Skinner the last word here before we close it out. And again, thank you all to joining us, all of our presenters here, Senator Skinner, and everyone listening in. So last word is yours, please.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I think that's an interesting concept. I don't know how much, I mean, look, trying to, what I was thinking is whether there's a new possibility here for, say, our affordable housing developers to play the role of being, in effect, the broker for multiple backyard houses. And I mean, we already have some of our homeless housing entities, organizations, say in the Bay Area, BACS, that's Bay Area Community Services. They're buying single family homes now. That is the way that they are providing homeless housing. And then they are expanding them some and sort of create lots more bedrooms. But this notion of turning people's backyards into that as a, and still letting the owner of the property get some equity from it. So that's I'm sure many people have been thinking about it. I don't know of a project that's actually tried it, but if there's bureaucratic limitations, hey, fill us in, because, for example, I mean, I've changed the rules on how foreclosed properties are auctioned. I've changed the rules on how community land trusts can, so lots of things like that. So this is a possibility, and I'm all ears for lots of different innovations in housing. But I only have 2 years left.
We know there may be a lot to do. Anybody else? Okay, well, I think we're over time, and that was the perfect last word. We wish you had more time to do lots of things. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Panelists, stay on for a debrief. Everyone, thank you again, and we'll look forward to following up and continuing the conversation. Have a good day.